Welcome to Alan Colmes Versus. We get to discuss some of the more controversial things that have been said in the recent news cycle with the key pundits and players getting attention on both traditional and digital media, the epitome of what we like to call in this building, fair and balanced. Joining me today from Atlanta, editor-in-chief of RedState.com and Fox News contributor Erick Erickson. Erick, you made a little news lately. Appreciate your being with us here now.
Sure.
After you disinvited Donald Trump, what he said to you, he said about you, he's a loser. He has such a spotty record. Have you seen what he said about women and other things? He just kept calling you a loser after his own misogyny. What's your reaction to the things Mr. Trump said about you?
Well, you know, I'm in great company being called a loser. Jonah Goldberg, Charles Krauthammer, George Will. I think I'll take it.
I'm aiming for that. I haven't achieved it yet, but I'm trying to get there. All right, so you disinvited him because you felt his comments were over the top. They were not decent. Is that what you said?
Right. Yeah, I think they crossed the bounds of decency for a presidential candidate.
Well, then, let's go. And I know that you've said a bunch of things yourself. It's like kids most likely, and put them up on the screen. Kids most likely will do best in households where they have a mom at home nurturing them while dad is out bringing home the bacon. Talking about Michelle Obama, I assume that Obama's Marxist harpy wife would go Lorena Bobbitt on him.
Right.
Should even think about cheating on her.
The Trump campaign sent out a full list of things.
All right, go down the list. Planned Parenthood, both companies, Coke and Verizon, have contributed to an organization that makes pregnant female animals and pulls the unborn from them and crushes them, comparing to women to animals.
True statement, by the way.
Do you regret any of these things?
You know, look, I've had to apologize for plenty of statements I've said in the past, including some of those. The difference was that Donald Trump didn't apologize. In fact, his campaign wouldn't give me a straight answer as to what he was actually talking about the night I had to make the decision to rescind the invitation. Had they either apologized or clarified that he didn't mean what a lot of people thought he meant, I would have invited him and would have dealt with it in a question and answer session. But they didn't want to do that. And I thought it would have been even a bigger distraction had he been there, having made those comments without clarifying or apologizing. They only clarified after I rescinded the invitation. They wouldn't clarify to me.
You said when did you apologize for any of those comments?
Oh, let's see. The comment on Michelle Obama, I was at a different network and issued an apology then. Yeah. Many of the comments I've had to apologize for in the past, and I was happy to apologize on things I thought I did wrong.
I mean, you were on Megyn Kelly's show and you doubled down on and got into a conflict on that show by doubling down on some of these comments rather than apologizing.
Yeah, on some of them, but on some of them I've apologized.
Well, which ones are you standing by that men should be the bread owner and they should bring home the bacon?
I think that kids do very well with moms in the house and dads making money, but my wife and I couldn't do that for the longest time. I'm certainly not going to hold it against someone if they can.
But do you understand why that's viewed as misogynistic to make those kind of comments?
I understand why people got upset about it. Or take the Planned Parenthood comment you read. I thought it was a fair post that calls Coke to publicly renounce Planned Parenthood, taken out of context, by the way, on what I was actually doing.
You've also said, let me put this, and this is not about women, but you've made an inflammatory comment about abortion. You said, here at Red State, they said the director wrote this, I assume it was you, once before our nation was forced to repudiate the Supreme Court with mass bloodshed, we remain steadfast in our belief that this will not be necessary again, but only if those committed to justice do not waver or compromise and send a clear and unmistakable signal to their elected officials of what must be necessary during our support, calling for bloodshed unless the court does what you want it to do about abortion. Is that not over the top?
I didn't write that, Alan, but I do stand by the post. I think when you read the post, it's very clear we're renouncing violence.
I tried as much as I could. You know, we're only doing a few minutes here, but I put it in context. I mean, that's an inflammatory comment talking about bloodshed if the Supreme Court doesn't act the way you'd like it to.
Well, I think you're actually taking it out of context from the entirety of the post. Again, I didn't write it, but I certainly stand by the other directors of the site.
It was right at the top of your site at RedState.com with your endorsement.
Sure was. It's a group site. I'm one of 20 people who write there.
Well, you endorsed that statement, though.
Yeah, I absolutely endorsed the entire post. It was a post calling on the Supreme Court to do the right thing and for people to go through the political process to end abortion, which actually is the killing of kids.
And if the Supreme Court doesn't do the right thing, in what way would bloodshed be acceptable to you?
Oh, well, follow along with the post there. It talks about working through the political process to make sure that we elect pro-life officials so that we don't resort to a process where people think they have to take justice into their own hands.
Right, but where would the bloodshed come in if you don't get what you want? Where would the bloodshed come in? And what form would that take?
I think it is focused on people who think that the system of justice no longer works and they have to become vigilantes, which we oppose.
Well, but you said bloodshed that might be necessary if the court doesn't do what you want. Explain to me how that would appear.
We were talking, Alan, about vigilantes who decide that they want to take justice into their own hands, as was happening prior to the Civil War. You know, many of the arguments to justify slavery are the arguments used today by the left to justify abortion.
So you would justify vigilantes under certain circumstances?
No, actually, we were saying very clearly, if you were to read the entirety of the post, that we are opposed to vigilante justice. Well,
it sounds like you said bloodshed would have to happen again unless the court does what you want. You didn't back off that statement, so I'm not clear why you're now saying vigilantes.
Read the entire post, Alan. You're talking about a sentence or two in a post of, I believe it was 700 to 1,000 words, where
it's a
we made
show
very clear that we are opposed to vigilante justice, and we think people need to turn to the political process and elect pro-life leaders.
So you renounce bloodshed?
Oh, I think we absolutely renounce bloodshed. That was the point of the post. So we don't want people killing anyone, including children.
All right. You're here. You're working. Your wife's probably home making dinner. Appreciate a little joke there. Thanks very much, Eric, for talking to us here today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. And be sure to follow Eric on Twitter at EWERICKSON. And I'm Alan Colmes. Thanks for watching.